Hello everyone, and welcome to the third lecture in the Decorators section of this course. And now we're going to learn about passing functions as arguments. So in the last lecture, we learned about functions within functions and how we could return functions. And now we're going to learn about functions as arguments. So we'll see how we can pass functions into other functions. So again, continuing on with the hello, I'm going to reassign the hello function. I'm going to just say return the string hi Jose. So that's my hello function. And then I'm going to make another function that takes in the argument func. And it's going to print other code goes here. And then what it'll do, it's going to print the results of func. So it's expecting func to be a function. And so now if I call other, you'll notice we get an error because it's expecting an argument. So I'm actually going to pass the hello function. And so what happens here? Well, other function takes in a function, it prints other code goes here, which is one of the outputs, and then it prints the results of whatever that function happened to be, which in this case was hello, which returns hi Jose. Great. So we've seen how we can pass the function as objects and then use them within other functions. So now we can get started with manually creating our first decorator. So in the previous example, we kind of actually manually created a decorator. So we're going to modify it to make it very clear what's actually happening here. So I'm going to say def, and I'm going to call this function new decorator. And it takes in a function as an argument. And now there's a function here within it called wrap func, takes no arguments, and it prints, let's just say code would be, let's just say code here before executing the func. And then I'm going to call the function that you pass into this new decorator function. Then I'm going to print code, say code here will execute after the func. And then what I actually do is I return this wrap underscore func. Notice I'm returning the function itself, not the result of the function. So that's one function, and I'm going to create a new function called func needs decorator. And all this does is it says print this function needs a decorator. Okay, so what happens if I call func needs a decorator? It prints simply that statement. Okay, simple enough. So this is where we actually see how a decorator works. I'm going to say func needs decorator. I'm setting that function equal to the new decorator function with the func needs decorator passed within it. Okay, so let's kind of break down what we just did here. I have this func needs a decorator function. All it used to do was print this function needs a decorator. So what I ended up doing was I took this new decorator right here, that function, which accepts a function as an argument, and I passed it the func needs decorator. So notice how it's going to get used within this block of code. So if I call func needs decorator now and run it, notice what I get. I get code here before executing the func. This function needs a decorator, which was the original func needs a decorator. And then I said code here will execute after the func. And looks like I spelled execute wrong. My apologies. So if I run these cells, code here will execute after the func. So what happened here? So the decorator just simply wrapped the function and modified its behavior. So this decorator wrapped this function to modify its behavior. So this is exactly what a decorator is. And now I'm going to show you how you can rewrite this code using the @ symbol, which is a symbol that Python recognizes as a decorator symbol. So I'm going to do @new_decorator, and I'm going to copy and paste this original function needs a decorator. So notice what's going to happen now if I say func needs decorator and I call it. We get the exact same code as if it had done this. Okay, so we've just built out a decorator manually here, and then we saw how we can use the @ symbol to do this automatically in Python. Again, I'm going to just slowly break down exactly what happened here. Notice, all this statement is doing, this decorator, is exactly what we did here. It takes in this function that we called needs a decorator, and by decorating it with this function, we pass it into that new decorator function and reassign it to this function here, which allows us to basically do exactly what we did here, but with this @ symbol. So I really want you to take your time and read what's going on here. We created a function called new decorator. It takes in a function. It has a function inside of it called wrap_func, which says print some code here before executing that passed function, does the function that you passed, prints code here will execute after the func, and then returns the wrap_func. Then we created a very simple function called func needs a decorator. All it did was print this function needs a decorator. Originally, when we called it with no decoration, it just printed that statement. But we passed it into that new decorator function and set it reassigned it to its original name. So then when we called it, you got the code here before executing the function happening, this, because remember, we're returning the wrap_func. So you get basically everything that's going on in the wrap_func with the function included. So we got code here, this function needs a decorator, which was this statement, and then code here, code executes here after the func is called. Now you could have done this line right here that I'm highlighting with this @new decorator symbol, and you'll realize it's the exact same thing. So when are you going to use this kind of behavior? This is really common when you're working with web frameworks such as Django and Flask, which you'll run into decorators a lot with web development. And you can even go through just the very beginning of the official Flask tutorial, and you'll notice that a decorator will be placed there. A lot of times that's what prevents beginners from working with web frameworks when they're just learning Python, because this sort of notation doesn't make any sense to them. But I hope now that when you see how we manually built out that decorator notation and that reassignment, you'll feel that it's actually a lot easier just to call the new decorator like this with the @ symbol. Okay, so that's it for decorators. And go ahead and check out the Jupyter Notebook if you're having any trouble. So let's go ahead and open it here and zoom out a bit. I want you to know that this entire Jupyter Notebook takes you step by step through decorators, functions review, the scope review. Then it takes you through the functions within functions, returning functions, functions as assignments, and then creating a decorator and using this decorator notation. So I encourage you, even if you went through all the videos, take your time and really read through this decorators Jupyter Notebook. Okay, so that's it for decorators. As far as usage, you probably won't see them within your own code unless you're doing some more advanced function passing or you're interested in web frameworks. But I hope this entire breakdown really helps cement the topic for you. Okay, thanks everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture.